Hello and welcome everyone. This is Type V3 with a super robot Chogokin review of Professor Saotome's most powerful creation, Shin Getter-1. Piloted by the old and new Getter team, this is the acclaimed super robot from the OVA series Getter Robo Armageddon. This figure looks phenomenal, and I can't emphasize that enough. Almost every section of this toy has been given special attention to make even the smallest of details pop. Starting with the paint, the whites are metallic, the reds ultra glossy, and the maroon sections carry a wonderful metal flake finish that just shimmer in natural light. There's also gold and green metallic trim throughout the body, as well as clear green plastic panels placed over silver detailing that give off an almost glowing effect. Shin Getter-1 has a well-defined silhouette, and the proportions of the frame line up solidly with the on-screen counterpart. The sculpting of the figure is faultless too, and I absolutely love the sharp yet subtle panel etching spread throughout. Surprisingly, I don't find that the joints break up the overall unison of the sculpt, and even the most troublesome area, the inner elbows, aren't all that unflattering. As for the head sculpt, this is the only part of Shin Getter-1 that I have an issue with, and it all has to do with the eyes. While the rest of the head was given a great sculpt, the eyes just appear flat by comparison. They look like stickers. I think that if they were set in deeper or given harsher black lining, the overall effect would have been nicer. Mind you, they're tiny, so their annoyance isn't too great in the grand scheme of things. Also, the right horn is where my figure has its sole QC issue, that being an extra dab of paint. When it comes to size, Shin Getter-1 is huge. With a height hovering around 6.5 inches, this is easily one of the tallest Super Robot Chogokin figures yet. And when you combine that with his chunky frame, he might actually be the largest SRC in terms of overall mass. In fact, his size definitely starts to encroach onto the territory of the more premium Soul of Chogokin's sister toy line. Now, of course, he's large, but how much diecast does he have? Because traditionally with SRCs, the bigger figures have less diecast. But surprisingly with Shin Getter, proportionally, he's much more along the lines of Mazinger here, in that this entire red section of his torso, all diecast, and the red bits of his legs, all diecast. And that means he's got quite a lot of heft to him. In fact, I think he has the most diecast combined in the entire Super Robot Chogokin lineup, so that's pretty cool. As for articulation, well, brace yourself, because this guy is crazy. We'll start with the head. So it's a hinged ball joint with good range, but then there's a second hinge that kind of just disconnects from the head entirely to look down, and then there's a second hinge underneath that to let it come upwards. So he can do this. Now you're probably wondering that's probably useless, but what he can do is look all the way up, and that's crazy. The shoulders, as you might have guessed, he does have the swing out shoulders on a diecast ball, and then there's a ball hinge in there which you can pull out, and then this is a soft clicky ratchet, and so that's just amazing for some shoulder articulation. Here at the top where this white section is, that's a bigger ball hinge, and then there's a swivel right here and a double jointed elbow, which is on a very soft ratchet, and then a ball jointed wrist. The torso, you can extend upwards. The top has some good range to it, as does the bottom, and check out how far he can bend. This I thought was nuts. He can pretty much bend all the way over. Now this comes at the behest of making a very gappy backside, but considering the kind of moves that this guy does in the anime, I like that he can do this. The hips, he has SH Figure Art style hips that you can pull them down, and you can tell they're on diecast hinges there. Now, it's a stem ball joint at the top, but there's also a ball joint in the thigh connection there where that thigh swivel is. Crazy stuff. The knee joint, clicky ratchet with the collapsible panel, so he can go all the way up. And, of course, the feet. Definitely on a ball joint, which you can then extend to get even more range. Now, you've noticed that he has a lot of extending panels. If you extend his feet, his hips, his chest, and maybe raise his neck up a bit, he actually stands closer to 7.25 inches tall. Makes him even larger. I mean, he makes Mazinger over here look like just like a child. Fists are the standard set of hands included with this SRC. You also get open palms and a single dynamic right hand. I suspect this single hand was meant for the Stoner Sunshine attack, but since there's no included effect part, it kinda, well, loses its effect. Next is a replaceable stomach section to replicate the famous Getter beam attack. Swapping out the part was incredibly easy, and the metallic red circle is mesmerizing. Unfortunately, much like that single dynamic hand, there's no beam effect part included for this attack either. One final pair of hands are included, and they're of the gripping style meant for wielding the Getter Scythe. The weapon itself is large and the blade is beautiful. The tip pops off, which makes getting the hands around the staff much easier, and Shin Getter-1 has no problems holding the accessory with one or two hands. The last accessory included is Shin Getter-1's Battle Wing, and it simply pegs into his back. This ultimately completes the figure's look and gives him that intimidating and demonic aura. Now the wings have pretty awesome articulation. They are both on ball hinges with a swivel, so they can pretty much go in any motion you want them to go into. This does create some problems though. I mean, between the giant wings, these forearm spikes, and his giant scythe, you will run into problems of just a lot of things conflicting and hitting each other. So despite having all that articulation, you do have to take some time to think about where you're going to pose certain sections. But thankfully he can get around most situations. The other thing he comes with is this little attachment piece, like all other SRCs, and it's basically for a Tamashii stage, and it just plugs in right there. This is a stage Act 5, and it's meant for things like Super Robot Chogokin and Robot Spirits and whatnot, and the problem is, because he's so big and he has so much diecast, he's heavy, and even this has trouble supporting him. So the only stage I've found that I've been able to comfortably use with him is actually the Trident stage. And that's simply because this is just a solid hunk of plastic, and you can basically just mount him there. So that's just something to note. If you're going to use a display stand, go for the Trident if you want this guy in the air in any situation. Now, while that may be the last of the items in the box, this SRC also benefits from the crossover join feature, so arm swaps and different backpacks can be equipped to give you a very basic customizing gimmick. To say that I like Super Robot Chogokin Shin Getter-1 would be an understatement, because I love this figure, so much so that I can comfortably point to it as being my favorite release so far in the entire lineup. The core figure is sensational. It's large, contains a substantial amount of diecast, and has some of the most advanced action figure engineering to date. Yes, there are some minor aesthetic issues, but it's nothing detrimental to the overall presentation, and the included accessories, while few, are definitely impressive in their own right. Having said that, this isn't exactly the ideal Shin Getter-1 package. He could clearly use some effect parts, and I question the exclusion of his signature weapon, the Getter Tomahawk. Then there's the price. At $70, this is the most expensive regular release of an SRC yet. So is he worth it? Absolutely. I'm positive this is a great toy. It manages to capture the spirit of the larger Soul of Chogokin toy line and presents it to you in a tighter package. While small changes and additions would have made this release perfect, as he is now, SRC Shin Getter-1 isn't far off. Anyways, this has been Type V3. Thanks for watching, and I have a feeling that Bandai has a couple more ideas for this figure in the future. Whether that's in the form of an add-on set or even a black repaint, I'm sure this isn't the last we'll see of Shin Getter-1.